So this next lesson is on fair division. And this stuff comes out of a handout that was posted on Canvas, so you'll find it there. So fair division. So we have when there are n parties, and you want to equally divide something. And then the division would be given by 1 over n. Right? So by example, so if n was equal to 5, then I would divide 1 over 5. And so the fair share would be 20% of the whole. All right. So dividing items, all right? So there's two types. One that can be continuously divisible. Yeah. So items that can be divided into smaller and smaller pieces. So you think in terms of something like a candy bar or a plot of land. And then you have other types of items, and these ones are discretely divisible. So items that cannot be broken apart. Right, fall into this category. And so an example of that, you would think in terms of a house, car, and so on. So those things that you can't break into pieces. Well, then we go into several methods, and several methods I will talk about in this video. There's a few others that are in that handout, won't go into, but they are in there. And so the first method is the divider chooser method. And so in this method, you have the divider. The divider cuts the item into two pieces. That are equal in value to his or her eyes. All right. Step 2. The chooser selects either of the two pieces. And part 3, the divider gets the remaining piece. And so the example they have about in the book would be if you have two children and you have a candy bar. So I have have this candy bar, and they're fighting over who gets the candy bar. Well, one way of solving the issue is by this method. And so you pick one of them to cut it, and then the other one gets to pick. Well, given that the one person is going to cut it, and they know the other person is going to get first choice, then they are going to most likely want to cut it in half. That way both parties will get the same amount of the candy bar. Right? So this method is specific to a two-party division. Right? Right? So this is for a two-party system, right? Next method is called the lone divider method. Okay. And so in this method, we have the following steps. 1, the divider divides the item into n pieces. Okay. Step 2. Each of the choosers will separately list which pieces they consider to be a fair share. And then this is their declaration or bid. And then step 3 is the lists are examined by the referee, and then there are 2 possibilities that could happen here, and we'll go through both of those. So 2 possibilities, and that is, first off, A, if it is possible to give each party a piece they declared, then do so. Right. And the divider gets the remaining piece. And then the other possibility here, B, is if 2 or more parties want the same piece, and none other, Then give a non-contested piece to the divider. Right. And then the rest of the pieces are combined and you repeat the process. Right. With the remaining parties. So then you start over again and do it again. Right. So let's do an example of this method. And so here, for my example, we have 3 items. So we're going to call this item number 1, item number 2, and item number 3. We have our 3 people are Mo, Larry, and Curly. And so each one goes through and they value in turn what they think the fair share is. So Mo goes through and says item 1 is 30%. Item 2 is 45%. And item 3 he puts at 25%. Larry puts in his bids and he says 1 is 40. Item 2 is 30. And item 3 is 30. And Curly likes each one equally as well. And so he puts in a bid of 33 1/3 on each one. So then they come up with their declaration. So Mo will declare item 2. Larry declares item 1. So then in this scenario, we got that Mo will get item 2. Larry gets item 1. And then Curly gets item 3. And each one of them gets an item that is what they consider to be their fair share. Okay. So then the next example we'll go through, the next process is called the sealed bids method. So really this is in terms of discrete fair division. So let's first write out what all the steps are, and then again we'll go through an example as to how this works. Right? So step 1, each party okay, list in secret a dollar amount they value each item to be worth. And then this is their sealed bid. Okay. Step 2. An arbitrator collects the bids and then for each party they total the value of all the items and divide it by the number of parties. And this defines what their fair share is. Next item. Right. And then if each item is awarded to the highest bidder. Step 4. And then for each party, the value of all the value of all received items is total. If the value is more than their fair share, they pay the difference into the holding pile. If the value is less than their fair share, they collect the difference from the holding pile. And then this ends the initial allocation. But then there will probably be some money left over in that pile. And so step 5, and that is in most cases, there will be money left over there will be money left in the holding pile. And the surplus is divided equally between all the parties. Right. So now we've gone through all the steps of this. Let's go through an example of this. Right. And so again, we'll have in terms of Mo, Larry, and Curly. And the items we have up are a chair, we have a TV, we have a stereo, and we have a couch. So we have those items, and so each one will go through and they will put in a bid as to what they think each one is worth. And so let's say for Mo, he goes through, he says the chair is worth 100, the TV he puts at 250, the stereo is at 75, and then the couch is at 125. Right? Larry comes through. He does the same thing. So he says the chair is 200, and the TV 150, and then the stereo 100, and then the couch 250. Right? And then Curly puts in his, and so Curly says the chair is 50, and the stereo 200, the TV is 200. Sorry, TV is 200. Stereo is 150. And then lastly, the couch at 100. So they each put in their bid, and now what each one has to do is figure out in terms of their fair share. And so what happens is you would get the total. So let's put here the total. And so for Mo, his total is $550. And then his fair share is going to be the 550 divided by 3. And so his fair share is 183.33. Okay. And then we do the same thing for Larry. And so his total comes out to be 700. So this would be 700 divided by 3. And so this comes out to be 233.33. And then lastly for Curly, total here is going to be 500. And so this is going to be 500 divided by 3. So this comes out to be 166.67. Right? Right. So we have it in terms of each one. So for Mo, his fair share for him would be 183.33. Larry, his fair share would be considered to be 233.33. And then for Curly, would be 167.67. Right? Right? So now we decide who gets what. And so first off, for the chair. So again, we alert our things to the highest bidder. Right? And so we would have that the chair, the highest bidder would be Larry. So the chair would go to Larry. Right? The TV, well, that goes to the highest bidder. And so based on this, the TV $250 goes to Mo. And then we have the stereo. And so the stereo at $150 goes to Curly. And then we have the couch. And so with a bid of $250, that would also go to Larry. So now we need to figure out in terms of how they did compared to their fair share. Okay. So let's go through our people here. And so first off, let's do in terms of Mo. So Mo got the TV. The value of the TV for him was $250, which is more than his fair share of $183.33. So 66.67 goes into the holding pile. Right? So he has to pay the difference into the holding pile. Okay. Well, the next one then was Larry. And so for Larry, we said that Larry gets the chair and the couch, is what he walks away with. And so the value to him would be the 200 plus the 250. So that comes out to be $450, which again is more than his fair share. And according to him, his fair share was $233.33. So he has to pay the difference into the pot. So he puts in $216.67 into the holding pile. And so that takes us now to Curly. Sorry. So we get to Curly, all right. And so we said Curly got the stereo, and for him had a value of $150. Okay. And this is, which is less than his fair share. And so he said that his fair share would have been $166.67. Okay. And so he collects 16.67 from the holding pile. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we need to look at how much money we still have kicking around in this holding pile. And so let's look at that. So we have our holding pile. Okay. So we know that in terms of the holding pile, we know that Mo paid in 66.67. We know that Larry paid paid in. 216.67. This would give us a total of 283.34. But then Curly got to draw some money out, and so Curly took out 16.67. So that brings the new balance down to 266.67. So that money is left in the holding pile, and so now that the process is done, we take the money that is left over and we divide it by the number of people. So this comes out to $88.89. And so each party receives $88.89. All right. And that will conclude this lesson.